Pomaže Bog, odnosno Hristos vaskrse, pomaže Bog, dobro jutro. Christ is risen. Good morning. Dobrodošli na čas crkvene škole preko elektronske medije. Za Tominu welcome to our virtual church school or the Sunday of St. Thomas. Da se pomolimo Gospodu, let us pray to the Lord. Hristos vaskrese iz mrtvih, smrti usne popravi, suživog grobje, život daroval. Christ is risen from the dead, trampling down the death, and upon those in the tempest following light. Hristos anestiet necrom, thanaton, Atis ascetis endis mi, masi, Zoe caris amenos. Gospodи Isuse Hriste Bože naš, blagoslovi ovima koji se uče s ovim učenjem na Tvoje proslavljenje, na njihovo spasenje i na izbavljenje sve što postoji. Hristos vaskrse. Dobrodošli još jednom na čas crkvene škole preko elektronske medije. Primećujete, nadam se da može da se vidi, u oltaru sad stoji plaštanica. Nad oltarom. Plaštanica je veoma značajna liturgički predmet. Na njojzi je naslikan Hristos posle skidanja sa krsta, a sa njim je presveta Bogorodica, pravedni sveti Josip i Nikola, evanđelist Jovan, mironosice i anđeli koji oplakaju mrtvog Hrista, odatle plaštanica sa plačom. Na grčkom se zove isto epitafios iz dve reči. Epi, što znači na, i tafos, što znači grob. Sad razvoj plaštanica je prilično složen i dovede se u vezi sa razvojom vozduh. Vozduh je liturgički predmet što sveštenik nosi na svojim leđima prilikom velikog hoda, a veliki hod jeste taj deo svete liturgije kad uđemo upravo u Hristovo raspeće, skidanje sa krst i pogrebom. Kad sveštenik završi veliki hod, prvu molitvu što govori, blagobrazni Josif, skinuši sa drveta prečisto telo tvoje, plaštanicom novim ga obavi i u novi grob obivi i u novi grob ga položi. Tokom ulazak u oltaru, što sad postaje Hristov grob, sveštenik skida vozduh i stavi je oko kadionicu i tamjan predstavlja onim mirisima, i to je plaštanica i mirisima s kime je Josif sahranio Gospoda Isusa Hrista. Tako to se vezuje sa vozduhom i sa velikom hodom i isto sa večernjom službom na Veliki petak. Vozduh je platno koji je simbol, pokriva, u koji je Josip i Nikodim uveli telo Hristovo. U njega je uvijano evanđelje i sveštenik ga je iznosio i prislonio na grudi ili na ramenu dok se pojale stihovnje, stihire, večernje Velikoga petka. Znači, prethodno je bilo evanđelje zavijeno u vozduhu. Vremenom se razvilo plaštanica kao poseban liturgički predmet. I ono se iznosi na večernje u Veliki petak. Na jutarnje Velike subote se vršu statije, oplakanje Gospoda Isusa Hrista. I plaštanica ostaje, miruje, kao što je Hristos mirovao u grob tokom Velike subote. Liturgija Velike subote, odnosno već ulazimo u nedeljom, jer liturgija počinje sa večernje. S time se počinje novi dan i tu se prvi put čita na toj liturgiji Vaskrs evanđelje o Vaskrsenju. Pre nego što sveštenik čita tu evanđelje, on i svi sveštenoslužitelji menjaju odežde od tamne odežde u bele odežde. I onda po završetku službu počinje kasnije oko ponoći večernje, odnosno jutrenje, oprostite. Pre nego što sveštenik počinje službu, stvari na početkom, izlazi pojeći tropar drugog glasa. Kada ti siđe smrti, život besmrtni. I onda otkadi plaštanicu, podigne i unosi u oltaru. Što sad imamo prazan grob na kome su mironosice došli rano ujutru i zato se to jutarnje služi rano ujutru. U nekim krajima pre nego što sunce zađe, a ovde po američkim prostorima glavnom oko ponoći. I plaštanica će ostati 40 dana na oltaru od Vaskrsa do Vaznesenja. Zašto? To predstavlja Hristovo javljenje učenicima tokom ovih svetlih, radosnih 40 dana. Kao što čujemo u knjiga Dela apostolska, koje je napisao sveti apostol i evanđelist Luka, faktički kao nastavak njegovo evanđelje, gde je Gospod Isus Hristos javio se svojim učenicima 40 dana i kroz mnogih dokaza ubedio je u istinitost njegovog vaskrsenja. I zato čitamo evanđelje o ovim nedeljama danas, o javljenju svetom apostolu Tomi. Iduće nedelje će biti o javljenju ženama mironosicama i onda će biti čudesa Gospodnje, koji ako su bili pre njegovo raspeće, sakrane i vaskrsenje, ipak su isto jedno posjećaj da su isto bili ti takvi dokaza i poslije njegovog vaskrsenja. Just briefly to summarize in English, the plaštanica is one of the most beautiful and important liturgical items in the Orthodox Church. It developed out of the practice, it developed out of the air, that is the large cloth that the priest carries on his back during the great entrance. And in the divine liturgy, it will come to represent Christ's burial shroud, the plaštanica, as it's called in Slavonic, because it is embroidered with Christ after his being taken down from the cross. He is surrounded by his mother, Saints Joseph and Nicodemus, St. John the Evangelist, the myrrh-bearing women, and even the angels, and they are mourning, crying. In Serbian, to cry is plakati, hence the name Plaštanica. In Greek, it's known as epitaphios, which comes from two words, epi, meaning on, and taphos, meaning grave, so on the grave, as it is placed on Christ's tomb on great and holy Friday. Now, when we come to Matins, the Paschal Matins on the resurrection, before the very first liturgical action, the priest will come out, he will cense the Plaštanica, the epitaphios, in the tomb, sing the troparion in the second tone, when thou did descend unto death, O life immortal. And then he will, reminding us of Christ's descent into Hades and his liberation of the souls held there. Just as to revert back, before the Plaštanica was used on these services, the priest would precisely use the air, the big covering for the gifts that he utilizes on the great entrance. That is during the Divine Liturgy, when we enter into Christ's crucifixion, his being taken down from the cross and being buried. The altar becomes Christ's tomb, and the Plaštanica, the air on the back of the priest's that the priest is carrying, becomes his burial shroud, the Plaštanica, the epitaphios. And the priest recites the prayer, the noble Joseph, having taken thy most pure body down from the tree, wrapped it in fine linen, and anointing with spices, placed it in the tomb. It's that point that he takes the air, wraps it around the censer, which is burning out incense, giving off fine spices, and then covering the chalice and the discus, taking us into Christ's burial. Before the Plaštanica, the tradition was that the priest would come out with the gospel wrapped in the air and being placed for the people to venerate. Now, you'll notice that the Plaštanica, hope the camera angle is good, is on the altar table, and it will remain there for 40 days between the Pascha of Christ, his resurrection, and the ascension. And this is to remind us of those joyous 40 days that the Holy Apostle Evangelist Luke speaks of in the book of Acts, whereby Christ, for 40 days, by many signs, demonstrated the truth of his resurrection. And so we will have the gospel accounts of Christ appearing today to his disciples, and then later to St. Thomas, to the myrrh-bearing women, and then we will have gospel accounts of various miracles. Even though they chronologically happened before Christ's crucifixion, they are also a witness that by the same signs, he demonstrated the truth of his resurrection, and in this way gives us the unending joy. I will now turn the podium over to Popadija, sad ću predati ovo nastavničko Popadiji.
Christos Vaskrese. Welcome to our virtual church school. Hope everybody had a very blessed Pascha. And as we continue on, hopefully we didn't go just back to our normal routines. Just the Pascha was another day, and now we're moving on with what we do every single day of our lives, and we don't even come to think or recognize that Christ is among us. And that is what is very important today. And into the gospel readings that we've read between the resurrection and today, of recognizing the Lord when he is with us. We have today dedicated to St. Thomas. He won the proof. He wanted to physically see that the risen Lord, to touch him, to feel him, to know that he was there. And many of us, as we go about our daily lives, we want that proof. Society gives us to that. We hear people saying all the time, oh, the proof is in the pudding. Oh, I'll need proof of that. Science teaches us that everything needs to be explained. It needs to have a concrete explanation and proof before we could make it to be a fact. That we need verification of every single thing. But there are many things in society, in the world, that we need, that we rely on each and every day of our lives, but we don't see. Can you think of any of those? Air. We don't see the air, but we definitely need it. If we didn't have the air, we'd be without oxygen. We probably would not be standing. Gravity. Can you see gravity? But gravity holds us to the earth. Without gravity, we'd be floating into space. We wouldn't be human beings walking on the face of the earth. But God has created these things for us, these invisible things for us, so that we are able to sustain life and to have life in its fullest. We must recognize that the risen Lord is present among us. Wind. We have wind. When the wind blows, we can't see it blowing, but we know it's there. We get it chill through our bodies. We feel it hitting in our faces. It's part of the air. So all these things we accept because we need them. We know that we need them to sustain ourselves. But we don't have that physical proof from science, the little thing written down on paper, that proof in the pudding, but we accept it. There was one story, and I may have said this in the past, of a man who decided he wanted to see God. And he went to his father confessor and he says, I don't believe there's a God. I've never seen him. I'm old and I've never seen God anywhere. And the old man, his elder, his father confessor said, you know what? You're going to do me a favor. You're going to go. You're going to go where it's quiet. You're going to pray. You're going to meditate. You're going to go out by the beautiful lake. But you're going to go out there before dawn. If you want to see God, you got to be there before dawn. And you're just going to sit there. You're going to sit there all day long. And you're just going to look around and you'll see God. God will be there for you. And then you won't have that doubt anymore. You won't be like the doubting Thomas. So the man said, obedient to his elder, gets up very early before dawn, packs himself some food, packs himself some water, and he goes on the hike. He walks through the woods. He begins to hear things like birds starting to chirp a little bit, life starting to come back after the long night. He gets on the rock. It's a cool rock, kind of mossy and cool from the morning dew. He sits on the rock, and he puts his head on his fist, and he's sitting there. And all of a sudden, he starts to see the sunrise. Ah, great, now it's daylight. He told me that if I'm here before sunrise, I will see God. The sun goes up and up into the sky. Birds start chirping everywhere and flying everywhere. Squirrels and bunnies are hopping around. The heat of the day starts warming up the dew on the rock, and he just keeps sitting there in the sun, getting warmer and warmer and thirsty. He reaches for some of his drink. He drinks. Just keeps sitting. He sees a deer scampering over into the woods. He sees some squirrels running and playing. He sees bunnies. He sees baby birds. He's sitting there. The sun is scorching. He's getting really super hot. He said, man, I'm sitting there, and I still don't see God. So it's getting to be late afternoon, and as the elder told him, he is sitting there until nightfall. And then what you're going to do is you're going to be able to come back and you'll be able to tell me that you've seen God. So he has his little lunch. He looks, he sees he's out of water. He goes down by the stream, gets his cup, dips it into the water, and gets back, sits back on his rock again. And he's getting tired. The sun's starting to set. He's starting to see the moon come up. He's starting to see stars in the sky. But it's getting dark, and he can clearly see more deer out now. He gets up and says, this is it. I'm going back. Just like I thought, there is no God. I sat here all day in the burning hot sun, and there was no God. I see nothing. He still wanted that proof like Thomas. So he walks, he starts to get back on the trail. He's like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know which direction I'm heading. Which way am I supposed to go? He looks up and he sees begins to follow, he knows about the stars. He begins to follow the constellations in the sky. And he's following it. He's following the direction of the North Star. He's following it. And he finds he's looking, he sees fireflies flying in the darkness. He can hear an occasional bird still chirping as it's beginning to go to sleep. He hears the deer rustling. And he decides that he heads back all the way back to the monastery. He finds his elder. And he says, you know what? Sat there all day, wasted my entire day, basically. Seen a lot of stuff, but didn't see God. And just like I thought, there was no God. And his father confessor looks at him and says, my friend, you sat there. Tell me some of the things you see. Oh, I see the sunrise. It was dark when I got there. I see the sunrise just like you said. All I heard was a bunch of birds. I see some butterflies, some bees getting pollen off of flowers. It got really, really, really hot sitting there in the sun. It really dried up. I got really thirsty. I went down by the stream, got myself a cup of water. I seen some deer, some rabbits. When it got really dark, the sun went down. It got so dark I couldn't find my way back. I had to follow the stars to get back here. I almost didn't get back. And the elder looked at him and says, son, you don't have to see God with your eyes. You have to see God with an open heart. You've seen the birds. You've seen the sunrise. You've seen the sunset. You've seen the stars come out. You felt the dew. You even went down by the stream that God created to get yourself an extra drink of water. You need to open your heart to see God, not just open your eyes. Your eyes saw God everywhere, in everything that God created, but your heart was not open to know and see that God surrounded you. And that is how we have to live our lives. Do we recognize God in our life? Or do we just go about our daily lives and let the wiles and the cares of this world block out seeing God? And we hear in the gospel readings, in Luke chapter 24, it starts with chapter 1, 24:1, the first dawn of Pascha. And the myrrh-bearing women came to the tomb and found the empty tomb. They doubted. They didn't know what had happened. But an angel came to them and told them, fear not. Go proclaim to the world that Christ is risen. They were afraid. They felt that someone had stolen their friend's body, that it was a scam. And so they didn't know what to do or what to believe. But then they remembered his words, and they returned to the tomb, and they told what they had seen to all 11 of the disciples. And we'll talk more about the myrrh-bearing women next week. And their words seemed to be like idle tales. Peter ran and rose to the tomb, and stooping down, he saw the linen lying there by itself, and he departed, marveling to himself in what had happened. Now behold, as the two of them were traveling that same day in a village called Emmaus, which was 7 miles from Jerusalem, and they talked about all the things that had happened. So it was, while they conversed and reasoned, that Jesus himself drew near and went with them, but their eyes were restrained. So they did not know him. Their eyes were restrained. Their eyes were being clouded by all the events that had happened. The gossip, somebody stole the body. We knew this was going to happen, just as the prison guard said. We're sad. How are we supposed to go on with our lives? Our leader is gone. They let all the cares of the world encompass them and surround them, which closed their eyes to reality, closed their eyes to the fact that Christ was standing right before them. So their eyes were restrained, and they did not know him. And he said to them, what kind of conversation is this that you're having with one another as you walk? And they're so sad. Then one of them, whose name was Cleopas, answered and said to him, are you the only person in Jerusalem who does not know of all the things that have happened in these recent days? And he said to them, what things? And they replied, the things concerning Jesus of Nazareth, who was the prophet, mighty in deed and in word before God and for all the people, and how the chief priests and all the rulers delivered him to be condemned, crucified, and killed. And we buried his body. And it seems that on the third day, since these things happened, the tomb is now empty. And when our women arrived at the tomb, they were astonished. They could not find his body there. When they did find his body, they came saying that they had also seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. And a certain of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it to be empty, just as the woman had said, and we did not see him there. And he said to them, oh, you foolish ones and slow of heart to believe in all the prophets have spoken. Ought not Christ, who has suffered these things and entered into his glory, and the beginning at Moses and the prophets, who expounded to them all the scriptures concerning himself. Then they drew near to a village where they were going, and he indicated that he would have gone farther, but they constrained him, saying, abide with us, for it is toward the end of the day, and the day is well spent. And he went in and stayed with them. And it came to pass, as he sat at the table with them, he took bread, blessed it, broke it, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they knew him from the breaking of the bread. And he vanished from before their sight. They knew him from the breaking of the bread. It was only when he sat down and broke bread with them again, as he had on Great and Holy Thursday, the institution of Holy Communion, did they recognize God before them, the risen Lord before them. And that just goes to tell us that God could surround us everywhere, but unless we are in communion with him, in a common union with him, unless we have our life grounded in the church, outside of the church there is no salvation. It was only when they broke the bread, which would be our partaking of Holy Communion, were they able to see and realize that Christ was amongst them. Otherwise than that, everything that bothers us, every law of the world, is going to overpower our ability to see God. Unless we have our lives grounded in the church, and that is why it is so important. We may say that God is everywhere present, fills all things. But it is only through the body of the church, the communion with God and our communion with others, that we are able to experience and believe and understand and see the risen Lord in the fullest. So that is a very strong gospel reading, one that we really, really need to look at and ask ourselves: do we see God every day in our lives? Or do we let everything else bother us and cloud us? Do we feel that we don't need to be in church because God's everywhere? I pray at home. I'm fine. But are we really? Do we truly see God in our hearts? Or do we need, which we do know that we do, the embrace of the church? Christ's body on earth, given to us for our salvation, in order for us to fully experience and know the risen Lord. And that is through all the holy mysteries of the church: Holy Communion, Holy Repentance, which we talk so much about during Great Lent, and its necessity in our lives in making us one and whole again. So Thomas, of course, when he was in the upper room, Thomas, called the twin, was not with them. And you'll find many times through the readings, Thomas is just like not there. He just seems to be busy doing some other things. And he said to the other disciples, told, we have seen the Lord. And he said to them, unless I see his hands and the print of the nails in his side, and put my finger in them, I will not believe. And after 8 days, his disciples were again together. This time Thomas was with them. Jesus came, the doors being shut, and stood amongst them and said, Thomas, reach your finger here. Look at my hands. Reach your hand here and put it at my side. Do not be unbelieving, but believing. And Thomas answered and said to him, My Lord and my God. Jesus said to Thomas, Because you have seen me, you have now believed. Blessed are those who have not seen me, yet believe. So Thomas wasn't unfaithful. He wasn't unloyal. He just needed that extra mile. He just needed that extra little, I need to see for myself. Now, we just need to be very profound in how we look to see God. We just need to look all the time with an open heart, open eyes, and open mind to receive God in our hearts, to receive the wisdom Lord. There were many times when Thomas was amongst that, was in the presence of Christ during his life. We first heard Thomas speaking on Lazarus Saturday. The Lord announced to the 12, Lazarus is dead, and I am glad for your sake that I was not there, that you may believe to see him resurrected. Nevertheless, let us go to him. Thomas, who knows the great risk that this will entail, response of the disciples, let us also go, that we may die with him. So he realizes that going into Jerusalem, he may face the consequences. Christ knew that too. But Christ did so in order that the scriptures may be fulfilled. Thomas realizes that they put their lives on risk by choosing to go into Jerusalem. But at the same time, it is what the Master wishes and needs to do. And his followers must go with him. We must stick by with Christ and obey his teachings, no matter what it would mean for to risk our fame, our fortune, and our lives. So we see here that Thomas was dwelt. He could have said, we're not going. No, we're not following him. We're going to go by himself. But he encouraged. He persuaded. So he was a loyal follower of Christ. We once again hear of Thomas in the chapters of the Mystical Supper. We heard this reading on Great and Holy Thursday during the service of the 12 Passion Gospels. As Jesus announces to his disciples he was going to his Father's house to prepare a place for all of them. Where I go, you know. Where I go, you know, and the way you know. Thomas pipes up, Lord, we do not know where you are going. How can we know the way? And the Lord responds with one of the most famous teachings of the New Testament. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Thomas here teaches us that it is okay to ask questions if we don't understand. Many times when we read or hear the Bible in church, we may need an explanation of what Christ is trying to tell us. And there's nothing wrong with that. Thomas has given us permission to ask if we don't understand, and to look for proof if we feel we need it. But look deep. And the first place you want to look for proof is in your hearts. Open up your hearts to receive the risen Lord. And the Lord will be always ever present with you. Just like all of the closing pictures.
Shine, shine, amid Jerusalem, the glory of the Lord is come upon thee. Exalt and be glad with Zion, and the light shall appear to in the resurrection of your Son. Sveti se, novi Jerusalime, slava Bogoslovljena, tebe osijaj. I tvori sada i veseli se Sijone, a ti čista, kraslića Bogorodice, urod u postani i rođenstva Tvojego. God is with us in Christ, and known for mankind always, now and ever, to age, days, on the sun, and close from you, should love, slavi, Amen.
Thank you. Have a very great day, and looking forward to seeing everybody at True School, where we will continue our lessons on Thomas Sunday and getting some of the projects that we need to have completed for actually our Holy Week banner. So we'll go through all those today too. Have a great day. you.